And we're back on air. Thank you very much Thank you very much once again to Marty and Bionic Dance for the last section. I'm personally slightly glad that that's over.
Wait, there's nothing wrong with a bit of geeking off.
No.
Who's into? Thumbs up if you want to know who won that.
That's true. We didn't actually get the result. Could we? Yes. Could we have the scores?
I can see whether or not people wanted thumbs up for that. Although there might be lag between the two. In the final two rounds, Bionic got 14, and Marty actually scored a respectable 15. However, Bionic had a massive lead, and so she ended up with 61, and Marty ended up with 46. Now, as 46 is closer to 42 than 61, I'm going to declare a draw. So I'm using my geek
it's as bad as Mock the Week.
I always kept vaguely aiming for that, but just couldn't get in as many puns.
Anyway, thank you once again. We are SkepticTV, and for this evening's programme we are going to be discussing contacting the dead. As ever, you can ring in if you want to ask us a question. We might not have an awful lot of time because we're only here for 1 hour today, but we'll try and get people on if you've got a burning question that you want to...
You need to contact Mr. Zulu because he's on text for the night, so it could all go extremely horribly wrong.
Yes. But the change is that you'll need to send your question to Trolling with Logic this week and not SkepticTV. Joining me on the panel, I'm Sound of Silence by the way, we have the Angry Womble back again. Blue Juggernaut, who's very pleased to have back.
How are you doing?
Dutch Liam 84 on the show for once and not just skulking quietly, keeping an eye on what you're typing.
Yay! Hi guys.
And we are honoured to be joined by one of the people who was actually there at our formation, DPR Jones. Thank you for joining us. Just a quick reminder, this is a charity show. If you haven't already, do donate. There is a link just below the video window, below the chat window. Click on that. The total is currently at $1,169, so it looks like Trolling with Logic is going to beat our total, but we'll see. As we said, if they manage to beat our total, then they get to choose a topic for one of our shows. And there may be some silliness as well along the way. Right, where should we start then? I suppose. Well, one thing that we were thinking of doing for this show was getting a Ouija board in, and I think we decided against it in the end because some people get offended by people attempting to contact the dead. Ooh, it's very late here. But I wondered how many people actually knew that the Ouija board was invented simply as a toy. It was never invented as any kind of paranormal equipment. It was just simply a fun game where children would sit down and the glass would move around and spell out names. So it was never invented as a device to contact spirits.
It's all psychosomatic anyway when people have the symptoms kicking off after the Ouija session. Because they're expecting crazy shit to happen, because that's what the hype is, so crazy shit does happen to them physically.
Yeah, we did think about getting in the next best thing, which is a Ouija board, which is used to contact Italian plumbers, but only about half the audience.
Surely that would be a Ouija board.
Yeah, a Ouija board. Mamma mia!
Mamma mia!
But yeah, it does amaze me that the Ouija board is still churned out on paranormal investigation programs like Most Haunted, and it's used. Well, people still do it at parties and seances and so on. And it hasn't got tired, in spite of the fact that it's also now a well-established fact that it is people pushing the glass around, whether or not they're doing it deliberately.
That's when people would turn around and say, but the spirits are making them move the glass.
Well, that's the thing, is why does there need to be a finger on the top? Why can't the spirits move the glass of its own accord? They're so bloody clever.
See, that's where the bullshit comes in.
That is true. It's one of those...
Exactly.
I mean, any fans of Penn and Teller will know the art, or at least be slightly well versed with the art of trying to spot the obvious red herring or the obvious misleading facts. And the fact that it is a glass, the fact that it is something transparent, is meant to demonstrate to the audience that, look, there's nothing underneath it. There are no magnets, there are no motors, nothing like that. And so people think, therefore, it cannot be anything natural moving the glass, but they're completely oblivious to the fact, therefore, that it's people putting their fingers on the top.
And also, in one of the episodes of Penn and Teller, they actually blindfolded a couple of people and put a Ouija board in front of them, and they mirrored the Ouija board, and they still went to the part where yes was supposed to be, and they still said yes, but it was no. If you understand what I'm saying.
Oh, I see. Oh, I see. Because they knew where they thought they knew where they were going, and so,
exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that basically sums up the bullshit of it.
It does surprise me though. 'Cause the séance goes back to, I mean, the séance as we know it goes back to the Victorian era mainly. But I mean, people have been trying to contact the dead obviously for millennia. But it just amazes me that people still fall for these same tricks. And I suppose it's only if you watch somebody like Darren Brown that you know that they're tricks.
It's the thing is with people that go to mediums, and I'm going to say that the bulk of mediums are going to be sort of within this category themselves, because whilst the likes of Derek Akora and are no fraudsters and douches for conning people, quite a good number of mediums themselves believe it completely. And it's the hope that something exists in the afterlife. And I mean, I've got some experience from having, out of curiosity, gone with my mum when she's gone to a spiritualist church a few times. And I do know that it's the thing where people, usually after they've had a bereavement, they go to a spiritualist church because they're hoping to get a message that the loved one is actually okay and they've made it through to the other side and they're happy, and that they want, you know, whoever they've left behind to be happy. And things like that.
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess we'll kind of come to this in a bit, but with the actual mediums themselves, it's going to be an interesting case to pick apart which of them are frauds and fakes, and those which are simply providing a service to their customers, they're telling them what they want to hear, and those which genuinely believe that they have psychic abilities. Because I cannot imagine how somebody could honestly convince himself that they have psychic abilities without some kind of medical condition like schizophrenia, wherein they are seeing people that aren't there.
It's not really medical condition as such, because it's more conditioning in the lines of they're taught how to cold read. They don't know that they're cold reading, but they're taught a lot of cold reading skills, and they're taught to perceive a lot of, you know how if you look at when you look at clouds and you think, oh, that vaguely looks like a rabbit, that vaguely looks like a dragon, that vaguely looks like this or whatever, or a pair of clogs if you're from Holland. But it's that pattern recognition is used in the case of, you know, the medium will look at a door and see in the woodwork pattern what looks like a face, and that will then get interpreted as the face of, you know, a guy or a girl, maybe someone they know. They might turn around and describe, you know, someone else that's in the same sort of group and sort of be describing something, and someone else will say, oh, that looks like my Uncle Bertie, kind of thing. And it's that use of very vague language that tends to get things sounding like they're real. Yeah,
I mean, as part of the preparation for the show, I watched James Randi's TED Talk, and he says that it's the case that the person who's getting the reading has to fill in a lot of the gaps. So they say, he's saying to me electricity. Now, did he work as an electrician? No. Did he have an electric beard trimmer? No. So on and so forth. And and they will keep on picking until they get it, and then they'll say, yes, that's right, he used to stick balloons to the ceiling with static electricity, and they go, yes, that's amazing. Should we just say, I'm not sure how many people in chat know what cold reading is exactly, so we should go through, in short, what that is. So basically, it can vary in the extent of how well practiced it's done, in the sense that some people will have a lot of training in psychology, for example, and they are able to pick up on the tiniest mannerisms when they recognise something or what they're thinking of and so on. But in many cases, you can just do it basically by guesswork, and helping to narrow it down that way and letting them do all the hard work. But you basically throw out completely general statements, you see which ones they pick up on, you run with those, you add more details, and quite often they'll say things like, and the person that you're missing was a very determined person. Well, just about everybody is determined to some extent or other. So
Can I pitch in real quick?
of course you can.
Because I think we hit a world record here. Because we're, I think, 11 minutes in and DPR hasn't said a word. And that I don't think that ever happened.
No, we're 15 minutes in, aren't we?
15 minutes?
We are 15 minutes
Yeah,
in.
like my computer's saying 2:16. DPR's not said anything. He must
We
be
did start a
looking
few
at
minutes
the
late.
spanner of stuff in the background.
I'm making notes. Don't worry.
He's going to store us and eat our souls, isn't he? He's up to nefarious lawyer tactics.
Yeah, he's going to hunt us with everything we said.
I might have to ask him about Peter Popoff in a minute, because I'm not sure whether he was a psychic. I know he could sort of psychically predict what people's illnesses were that he had to heal them of, but we know that was there
Would you like me to jump in now?
involved.
Would you like me to jump in now? Is this a convenient moment?
Yeah, go ahead.
I saw in the comments. I'm sorry, the comment has now disappeared, so I can't remember who posted it. But somebody said that people can do cold reading without even knowing that they're doing it. Well, yes, in fact, we all do it, because all cold reading really is making assumptions about people. The question and answer tactics that these these frauds practice is something somewhat different, but we all make assumptions, and to a degree that is what cold reading is. But when you get the likes of Van Prague, John Edwards, Sylvia Brown, their technique is to basically throw out as many questions as possible, and as sound of I'm sorry, I know it's sound of whatever, I'm going to call you sound of silence. As he said, it's relying on the recipient to fill the gaps. I did it once, very unnerving. I performed a few simple magic tricks, and very simple because I'm no magician, on a very susceptible person, and she was utterly convinced that I had powers. So I started doing some cold reading on her, and I said, I'm getting a J. Now, why do you think I said J? The reason I said J is that is the initial, the most common first initial of any name. When have you ever seen Van Prague, John Edward or Sylvia Brown come out to an audience and say, I'm getting an X or a Z? No, of course not. You're going to get a J, and it'll say J, Joe, John, Jack, Jim, and they throw out half a dozen names or more, and something's bound to clip, and then they say, is this meaning anything to you? And they allow, as I say, the recipient to say, oh, you might be talking about Jane. Now, they haven't mentioned Jane. They've just said J, Jim, Jack, John, whatever. Oh, yeah, it could be Jane. Oh, yes, that's right. A sister, a nephew, a son, a husband, older, younger. Oh, yeah, that'll be my younger niece or something. Oh, yes, and now I've got it. Yeah, it's all coming in now. And then they'll say, they claim that they don't use open questions, but they'll say something like, has she passed? Now, what are they going to answer? Either yes or no. No, that's right, she's not, but somebody's trying to talk to her. Or if yes, she has passed. Yes, I can see. Before she passed, there was a problem with her breathing. And people take this as. I actually, quite by coincidence, came across a video yesterday. I had no idea that I would be appearing here or even talking about this topic. But I came across a video which I've now favorited. So if anyone wants to watch it, go to my channel, look at my favorites. I think it's the most recent favorite, and it is entitled Van Prague Fails. And it's a lovely sort of like 5-minute bit of Van Prague appearing on a breakfast show or one of these turgid morning programs. And he comes out and tries to do some mystic reading. But of course he's doing cold reading, and he is so cold. He gets everything wrong. It's wonderful to see.
I would like to talk about some of
one final thing. You asked about Popoff. Popoff was not doing cold reading. The opposite of cold reading is doing hot reading. And quite often they will use both. But Popoff was using purely hot reading.
But was he contacting the dead?
No, of course not. He was contacting his wife, who was feeding him details that had been filled out by the people in the audience before they went in.
But was he claiming to contact the dead?
Reading. Sorry?
Was he claiming to contact the dead? I know he did faith healing, but I don't know if he actually claimed to contact the dead who passed over.
Not overtly, but he would approach people and tell them. There was one image that sticks in my mind. I think he was talking to a woman who was suffering from some sort of throat condition, and whilst he approached her, he said, "Oh, I can see Charles standing outside your house," and then read out the address and whatever. So, whilst not explicitly saying that he was contacting the dead, it was implicit in his routine.
I would like. It didn't take long to break the silence of DPR Jones, did it? But,
no, it didn't. If I can chip in on the thing of how the mediums get around the fact that everything is so vague in terms of the communication, is that it's things aren't clear when it's coming through from their dead. It's kind of, if you're listening to the radio and you've got a crappy reception, your area was a bit naff, and you kind of half in and half out constantly, and you can just about hear the radio music. That's the way they can't try and portray.
They do not say that. They only say that when they get it wrong. When, for example, Sylvia Brown tells the parents of a missing child that the child is dead, and then he's discovered alive and well a few months later. That's when they say, "Oh well, we can't always be guaranteed to get it right." All other times, they will say that they do get it right, and they exploit the gullibility of people into believing that they do get it right. That is why I have no hesitation whatsoever in calling Van Prague, John Edwards, Sylvia Brown frauds. They know that what they are doing is fraudulent, and I would invite them, please, to sue me. And if anyone who's watching this, if it's subsequently posted, send them a copy of this video, send them the invitation that I have just given. Sue me, please. But they won't, because they know they are frauds. Now, what was mentioned earlier on by you, Wombled, was whether people actually genuinely believe. I'm sorry, actually it was Sound of Silence, I think. Whether people actually genuinely believe. I think very much like religion, there are those that do genuinely believe that they hear the word of God, and that similarly those that genuinely think they're talking to dead people. The people that I've just listed, they are not genuine. They are utter frauds.
Can I just say, I was going to hopefully bring this up at some point, but somebody just asked it in chat, so it seems like as good a time as any to mention it. A particular medium on TV called Derek Acora, who was the resident medium on many of the episodes of a popular British TV series called Most Haunted, where former Blue Peter presenter Yvette Fielding, dressed mostly in leather and trench coats, would go around with a team of infrared cameras and some very nervous and flaky people and sit in old castles and try and contact spirits and catch them on camera without much success. But they always have their resident medium. And after being on this program for, I think, 5-6 seasons, somebody actually basically put Derek Acora to the test, and some of the production team planted fabricated names of spirits that were supposed to be in this house, and needless to say, he managed to pick up on them and who they were and what they were like and everything about them, and dug himself an enormous hole. And then obviously all this came to light, and he had to leave the program under a cloud. What really got me was the fact that rather than saying, well, it's a little bit dubious now whether we should have another medium, they just got another one on next week, carried on as if nothing had happened, it was all fine. There was no seed of doubt planted.
The greater disgrace is that licence payers' money is being spent on producing this sort of detritus.
Oh, it's not the BBC, so it's
I thought you said
led by Challenge. So no, we can at least rest quietly in that.
It used to be ITV originally. and then it was taken over by someone else.
But I mean, well, the BBC had their own similar program made in the 80s, I think, but it was just a drama, not a documentary. But it did frighten a lot of people who thought it was real.
Was that one with Craig Charles, the one off for Halloween?
With who? Sorry.
There was a Halloween spoof thing called with Craig Charles and I can't remember what the guy does. He's one of the famous, more mature BBC guys. He usually does newsy type things. Anyway, and it's just been this haunting thing. The ghost got into the computers in the studio, and it was just done as
that's the one. I think Michael Burke. I think it was.
Yeah,
I think it was Michael Burke. Anyway, the only interesting thing I know about that is that a man sued the BBC for soiling his trousers while watching that show.
Why would you want to admit that?
Anyway, they must have been very valuable trousers. Anyway, but you mentioned Sylvia Browne and who's the other one? DPR Jones, the
Van Prague, John Edward, and Sylvia Browne are the three that I mentioned. They're the three best known in America, I think.
Yeah, there's some great clips on YouTube, in particular, of Sylvia Browne making these tremendous gaffes. The trouble is that she has these little moments of self-confidence where she thinks that the person for whom she's doing a reading doesn't know a particular detail. So, for example, one of them, somebody says, I lost my partner and they never found his body. And she goes, the reason you didn't find him is because he's in water. You'll never
they died as a fireman in 9/11. And what I find absolutely extraordinary is that Montel, who I used to have some degree of respect for, actually tries to help her out at that point and says, oh, well, maybe it's because the hose pipes were putting the fire out and that's where the water is, or something. What is going on with Montel that he's actually positively supporting this utter shit?
Well, exactly. I mean, I don't know what his personal beliefs are, whether he has a reason to try and support this, or whether he just doesn't want Sylvia Browne to sue the television programme or whatever, or the editors. But I really don't know. But yeah, it's just amazing that she dug that and she kept saying it. Is he in water? Why might he? Could he have drowned in water? Was there water where he worked? I mean, I would have personally have said, did he like swimming or something, and try and change tack that way if I was trying to keep that up. The other one that she does, she's completely gone out of my mind now. Oh, they said, we want to know how our daughter died, and immediately Sylvia Browne goes, she was shot. And they go, no, she just collapsed in her bedroom suddenly. And so she quickly had to...
I remember that one as well, and she said, oh yes, but it had something to do with the chest, didn't it?
Yeah,
it was like a shot.
In the chest.
Yeah.
And they said the autopsy didn't find anything. Is it possible that anything hit her in the chest?
What I find interesting is the extent to which people will actually distort their reasoning. And this is why these people get away with it. It's because they are exploiting understandable feelings of grief and emotion at losing someone. And, you know, I hope and desire that, you know, they're not gone and lost forever. And this is why I actually think it's more deplorable than other forms of exploitation of the vulnerable, because they're using such a basic human emotion, such as grief and loss, to fill their pockets. It's absolutely outrageous, but that's what's behind it all, and that's why they get away with it. Why these people are never prosecuted, I simply do not know.
I mean, I don't always buy this idea that people say it's comforting, because quite often when these people have readings, they're always in floods of tears, and it's obviously distressing for them. They obviously...
The comfort thing is the fact that they can somehow get some comfort in the fact that the person's okay, or they died peacefully, or there's no grudges held.
Yeah.
And particularly there's no grudges held when people start donating, because that's what we're here for.
Yes, I was about to say that. We're halfway in now, but there have been no donations so far.
No,
so
and I've been saying that if people donate a certain amount, they will get what's that so long? I will be able to do a bookmark for them potentially, and I've actually just been in the background getting a picture of one of those sorted out. It's not the world's best in terms of its resolution. It's a bit blurred, but here we go. So come on, donate some money. If you donate enough, I may make you something like that. The link's in the Blog TV chat. So should we go back to mediums and psychics and contacting the dead?
There's a thing of beauty on a geology textbook as well, I noticed.
Yes, it was. It was one of my lovely books. Planetary surface processes. Clearly, cocksick.
And James Van Prague, who I had to find some clips of in the trailer for this show. The clip I used in particular, he was channeling the spirit of an audience member's dead German shepherd. For those of you who don't know, that's a dog, not a shepherd from Germany. And I don't think there are many psychics and mediums that seem to think that animals other than human beings have souls. And it's Eddie Izzard makes a point in one of his stand-up routines. He just says that if ghosts exist, we should be seeing them everywhere. There should be millions of chicken ghosts and cow ghosts and sheep ghosts and dinosaur ghosts. But we never seem to find any. What was that, Blue?
Amoeba ghosts.
Amoeba ghosts, sea monkey ghosts in my house. But yeah, they should be everywhere. We shouldn't be able to move for them. But I just don't know how how Van Prague expected to have himself taken seriously for channeling a German Shepherd. But of course, the audience bought it. And it's quite easy, I suppose, to do a reading for a dog because dogs generally act in a similar sort of way. He says that this dog has just gone and jumped up at you. Well, quite a lot.
He's jumped up at you and he's licked you. Oh yes. Oh, and now he's given a bark.
Yeah. Now he's dry humping your leg.
The person's there in tears saying, "Oh yes, it's so right. He did used to jump up at me, and he did used to lick me, and he did used to bark. It must be true."
You're giving these people a lot of criticism, I guess understandably. But if you're in the position of someone who's recently lost, say, a loved one, I'm not sure if any of you recently have, but there is a certain degree of comfort that you get from going to these mediums, or whatever you want to call them, and getting this sort of good news in a way.
I cannot disagree more. I do not think it is comfort. I think it is giving false hope.
Can I finish?
Please do, but okay, sorry.
There is a certain level of comfort which I suppose is their main point, to provide comfort. And is there nothing more rewarding than giving people comfort? That's the other side of the argument, and you've got to consider that. They're not purely out there to steal people's money. I think there's an element of trying to make people happy about it.
Okay, I've considered your point, and I still totally reject it.
Yeah,
I think this is where the difference between the kind of the local working mediums will come into play. I would say that most mediums that work the kind of spiritualist circuit network, because they do tend to just go to the different spiritualist churches just for a contribution to meet their travelling costs. They are literally going there because they believe what they're doing is right. Now, I'm not saying that what they're doing is right, but they genuinely believe they're doing things to help each other or to help other people. And
not all of them are out there simply for the money.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's when they make that transition from... Sorry, go on.
I think it's an injustice. I think it's an injustice to paint them all with the same brush and say every single one of them is out there for the money. Some of them will genuinely believe that they can contact the dead and actually bring comfort to other people.
Yeah, they've got that. They believe it as much as the people that they're giving they're trying to give the comfort to, and I think it's important to realise that there is that at some point. I'm not sure when it is, but at some point along the scale of spectrum of the different types of medium that you have out there, there is that point where they go from being someone doing it out of sympathy to being the con person. Now, when that happens, I don't know. Probably somewhere around the time they realise they can start making some money out of things, as in proper money. But I do think it is important to make that distinction.
Well, I mean, that's kind of what doesn't ring true with me, is the fact that it is always comforting. GPR Jones said there was a comedy show on the BBC a while back called Limmy's Show, which wasn't particularly funny, but he did a series of psychic sketches in which he had things like a psychic would either bring back a spirit from hell, or the spirit still had a massive grudge against someone, like they'd bought them some theatre tickets and they were screwing them up and throwing them at the person and so on, which would be much more plausible in my opinion. I know plenty of people who would happily bear a grudge from beyond the grave, but that never seems to happen, strangely.
And what also never happens, which you can see in the back of our... now I completely lost my train of thought here.
Yes, you did, sorry.
You had a train of thought?
Oh yeah. The end of our trailer, where you see James Randi saying that they never contact anyone from hell.
Sorry, well, there isn't. We always have the silly last half hour on Skeptic TV, and there's only 60 minutes into the show. I couldn't resist. Sorry, but yeah, I mean, okay, maybe you can't contact spirits from hell, but no, I mean, and I realise as well that they perhaps wouldn't want to, but I think it would be more entertaining if they did. I mean, on Most Haunted Live, because they kind of, the format got a bit tired, so they started doing live shows, which were even worse, but they had a seance in which they actually contacted Satan himself, which probably not the most sensitive thing to be showing on late night, or not particularly late night, more or less prime time television, but dabbling with dark forces for the purpose of entertainment. Okay, I can probably buy into that a bit more. It's a bit fun and so on, but I imagine for a lot of people it was terrifying. And of course, as soon as the number 666 came up on the Ouija board, people said they saw a dark shape moving across the church organ and descending over the audience and so on. But yeah, I don't see the comfort value in there, personally.
Me neither.
Nope.
What would be the first thing you ever said to Satan if you saw him?
Come again, Adam?
What would be the first
What would you
thing
say to Satan if you saw him?
met him?
One at a time, please.
What would be the first thing that we would say to a dead person?
Satan.
Oh, to Satan? Oh, God, that's an interesting question. I think.
Why did you invent evolution?
Yes, I would ask if there was any possibility of striking up a bargain with him.
I'd ask him if Saddam Hussein really was that demanding in bed.
I would ask if there were any job vacancies in hell, because it's better to be on the blunt end of the pitchfork.
Yeah, you might still have to get beaten a bit in hell, but it's always better when you've got someone to take it out on.
Yeah.
Are there any questions coming from chat, by the way? I'm watching the chat of the Blog TV chat.
The other thing that Randy said was that they never provide any useful information, the spirits. All they say is that I'm here and I love you and I'm in heaven and it's wonderful here. And
there's this necklace over there, or this watch over there. Don't fight over the money.
James Randi's grandmother wrote a will which she hid in the house somewhere, and they could never find it. And so they tried to contact her, presumably not Randy himself. I wouldn't have thought he would have gone to a seance. But she didn't provide any useful information about where the will was. It's always it's the James Randi $1 million prize, isn't it? If you can prove psychic ability under some kind of laboratory conditions, whether it be it's basically the psychic has to come up with something which they could not have known previous to the experiment.
Jacob
but they've never
Plumloft
taken him
wants
up
to
on
know
that.
if they check the freezer.
If they check the freezer, what? Put a will in the freezer?
Yeah.
Well, I suppose you
do
get a bit dotty when you get old.
That makes sense.
And Gleamy had a question which I've asked him to send me to Skype via Skype, but he's not sent it yet. He must be typing.
Don't forget, you can call in as well. As I said, you have to send
we
your...
do take calls, but...
Yeah. We don't have an awful lot of time, but send your message to Trolling with Logic, not SkepticTV this week, for obvious reasons.
Speaking of the $1 million challenge from James Randi, does anyone of you know Derek Ogilvie?
No. I thought I did, but then I thought it was a character in War of the Worlds, so no.
Oh no! He's a baby whisperer, which and he's
What?
he's pretty big here in Holland. He's from Britain, if I'm not mistaken, and he recently did the $1 million challenge. And there was a child in another room, and he was in a separated room, and he had to guess what the child was playing with. He can also contact dead children, by the way, but. And the child was playing with 16 toys, and he had 16 tries to guess what the child was playing with, and they set a minimum of 2 guesses, and he got 1 right out of the 16, and still he was absolutely gutted. Like, I don't understand how this could have happened. I was so sure about it. Blah, blah, blah.
What were the conditions
this
for winning?
is one of the reasons why I think a lot of these people are quite genuine in their beliefs. I've seen similar things done with divining rods, and people accept the terms of the double-blind test to which they're going to be put and say, yes, that's not a problem, and they get the results, and of course they have completely failed or done no better than average. And they're genuinely sort of like, I just don't understand it. It's never gone wrong before. So going back to what Adam was saying before about, I agree, there are some people who genuinely think that they can talk to dead people. Unfortunately, they are wrong. And as soon as they start seeking to exploit the vulnerabilities of others, that's when I have a problem with it. And yes, Adam, I apologize if I was too hasty to dismiss your point. There are those that are genuine about it. They're still wrong.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's the distinction point that I was talking about earlier, is when they go to the point where they are exploiting other people. There is a question for you, DPR, from Gleamy. He's curious about for an update on the pop-off thing. Gleamy said he recently took out a campaign, that's you by the way, against him, as in pop-off, broadcasting on channels available in the UK. Could you tell us what the progress is?
Very slow. Unfortunately, what's happened is that he's obtained a license to broadcast into this country from Iceland. It's a European license, and all the authorities in the United Kingdom have basically told me that there is nothing that they can do because he's operating under a European license, and under European laws there's nothing that they can do. So in order to take it any further, I would have to challenge either the license that he obtained in Iceland, which I have tried to do. It looked encouraging, but they didn't do much about it, so it's now looking at the European laws, and whenever you go to law and Europe, it gets absolutely crazy and very troublesome, and it gives me a headache. So that's where we've got to. I haven't totally given up hope, but I'm somewhat troubled about having to deal with European law.
We can always ram raid the broadcasting station if need be. I'll volunteer my services.
Wait for a volcano to go off underneath it.
I imagine it comes in. I imagine it comes in by satellite, so I think that that may be a difficulty.
I'd like to think that Iceland have got more sense than to build important structures right next to the volcano. But I say the volcano.
Volcanoes can grow pretty quickly. There was one that grew in Mexico in about a week. It flat-filled, and then within a week started off with the smoky ground, and then within a week you had a volcano.
Lord Wobble, you sound as if you would be supporting Nephilim Free with this
No, it's called
swift geological transformation.
Geology can happen quickly, not all the time, but it does.
Did you say you had a question for DPR Womble, or is that the one you just asked?
That was the one. Hang on.
Oh, you
I've got
just
to do a bit of
okay.
modding.
I'm only paying half attention. I'm trying to monitor chat.
Yeah,
I
I'm doing
don't
that
think
as well.
they're posting a link to some lesbian and bi girls. I'll get onto that in 15 minutes time. So as soon as I'm done here.
It was a fly-by posting. They've buggered off.
Oh god.
Yeah, well, I think they get auto-kicked now. Anyway, we're getting sidetracked. We shouldn't be spending time on the trolls.
I have not a
Science,
story
can
of,
I ask you this?
of
Do you,
Derek
think
Ogilvy.
do you think it is a sad indictment upon us that we are not actually progressing? However much education is supposed to be improving, and technology and science and our understanding of the world is supposed to be improving, we're still really tied to the dark ages when it comes to things like religion and talking to dead people. Are you pessimistic or optimistic about the future of mankind?
I think that it's pretty much the same as it's always been. I think that there have always been people who, I don't want to use the word troglodyte, or I don't want to use the word, what are they called? People who are resistant to change.
Luddites?
Luddites, they're the ones. It is very late here in the UK. I just think that the only real difference now is that these people get something more of a public voice courtesy of the internet. They have a platform by which to spread their message, but I think they are still the fringe, and I think there was a bit of discussion of this in one of the earlier segments, but I think it's just the case that the media now feels compelled, in terms of what it calls balance, to represent these people disproportionately for how they make up society. So I think that they are still the fringe, and perhaps we shouldn't be giving them as much attention as we are. I think that the rest of society is keeping up with technology, is staying rational, and is progressing. So no, I'm optimistic. I don't think it's going to get better. I don't think it's going to get worse.
Joe Zemecki just brought up a good point in the chat. He said the internet is... he's saying about the fact that with the greater communication due to the internet, we're effectively going to teach more people about kind of skepticism and sort of that sort of thing, and basically it'd be a nail in the coffin of religion. I mean, I'm personally sometimes a little bit more dark about these sorts of things. We're going to get extinct at some point, so yeah, it's going to happen one way or another. Either we'll evolve into another species, or we'll get wiped out in some other way. So I'm thinking in geological time, though.
Yeah, but
3 million years is not much.
The internet, yes, it's a great resource for spreading information, but the information doesn't necessarily have to be true to be put out on the internet. Hamza Sortzis is spreading his disingenuous claptrap through the internet, as are Ray Comfort and Eric Hovind and Cy Ten Bruggencate and all these, and Ken Ham. There's a load of bullshit coming out, so I don't think that the internet is necessarily the answer to educating people.
No, it's not the answer to educating people, but it does help people that are in isolated places, like a number of atheists in the United States are trying to find out whether or not they're the only one that thinks along the lines that they do.
Well, exactly.
It's not the answer, but it's a tool.
They're another one of, well, they used to be another one of these fringes. I mean, Christopher Marlowe, for example, the playwright, was basically ostracised. I mean, it's never been officially established that he was an atheist, but most of the evidence points that way. But he was ostracised by society as a result of it. And of course, there are still people who live like that today. But the great thing about the internet is that yes, it can afford people to see viewpoints outside of their own, or outside of the predominant ethos of their culture and so on. So it is uniting people. I realise that makes for more clashes, because you can have the flat earth society ganging up on the, well, sane people of this world. So perhaps there's going to be more conflict. But yes, it's a force for good as much as it's a force for evil.
Could I just? I know that we're approaching the end of our hour. Can I just throw in something quickly? So far as the charity is concerned, I would like to encourage people to donate, and I want to give a personal anecdote. Many years ago now, going back to university days, my tenancy had run out on one place, and I didn't have anywhere to go. I ended up homeless. Now, it was awful. I literally, I just, there was nowhere to go. I fortunately had a car, and I spent the night in the car, but I just wanted people to reflect for a moment on what it must feel like. Imagine that you are going home and you can't get into your house. You've lost your keys, and of course you've built the security up so much you can't get into it. You're the neighbour that you've left your spare set of keys with is away. There's nothing you do. You're going to have to sleep rough that night. Now imagine what it's like for people sleeping rough every single night, never having a home. With that thought, please go down to the link below and make a small donation, or a big one if you can, to those who are trying to help the homeless in Texas. Thank you.
Well, I mean, even worse than that,
and
imagine if
Texas,
you are...
There's Fort Worth has got a branch of the charity, and even little donations, lots and lots of little donations will help. Every little helps to steal the line at Tesco's or Asda, whatever it is that use that. It's the sort of thing that AHH focuses their support on personal care items to help the people that are homeless to try and keep themselves clean, keep themselves presentable when they go for job interviews. So it's trying to give them something that's going to be practical to help them get themselves out of the situation that they're in. And if you do put down one of the larger size donations, please let us know. Joe Zemecki's offering some copies of his book. I'm offering to make some bookmarks. I've posted a picture up of one of the bookmarks that I've made. It's one I'm using at the moment. And if you made a really, really big one, I'd really go to town with the sort of stuff I'd use when making it.
Yep, and don't forget there's also the Star Auction, which is a complete case of Michael Shermer's Skeptic magazine, which has nothing to do with SkepticTV, unfortunately. But yeah, just to continue what DPR Jones was saying, imagine if not only if you had to sleep rough every night of your life, but also if you were approached by some people who were offering you food and soap and shelter and whatever, but only on the condition that you at least give thought or are forced to accept a religion that you previously didn't believe or didn't want to believe or knew to be wrong. So that is why Atheists Helping the Homeless are so... They're certainly a better charity in many respects than some of the theistic ones. Simply because
I would take issue with that. I do agree that I think it's pretty shabby when religious charities go in with Bible in one hand and a gift offering in the other. I don't think that you can say that atheists are better. I do actually think the way you could probably put it is that at least this sort of organisation that we're trying to raise money for, similar to Médecins Sans Frontières and Doctors Without Borders, they go in without an agenda.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
That is what makes them morally better. I'm not saying the work they do is better, but it makes them morally better in my view.
I was saying I don't think that they are better in every respect, but what you are guaranteed with Atheists Helping the Homeless is that they are secular.
I think saying one charity is better than another is counterproductive, because you shouldn't say one charity is better than another, because that's not the point of charity.
No, I said that they. I said that they are better in some respects than some of the theistic charities.
And also to point out some. Yeah, but some people do attach strings to their charity work. I mean, I know as well with talking about theistic charities, it's worth bearing in mind that not everyone that's theistic or theistic in origin will have the kind of bait and hook sort of scenario going on. I used to do a lot of work with St John Ambulance, and that does have very theistic roots. It's based on the pilgrims going off to the Holy Land and giving them support along the way, and it's got roots with the Knights Templar. But the modern St John Ambulance is very secular. Is very secular in what it does, and they do have collection tins out at big events, the likes of the big air shows. That's St John Ambulance, it's volunteers, those people aren't paid to be there, but there's collection tins out, so if people that have had some help, they can put some money in the pot, or they don't have to.
I
But
do
not
not
every
recall ever
religious
seeing
charity
a member
has
of the St John's ambulance people going up to someone and saying, "I will give you medical attention as long as you take this Bible in your hand and read with me." So that's, I agree with you, but there are some organisations.
Oh, there are some that do it.
Do that. Yeah.
Or dip into the Bible for medical advice.
I don't think that a charity that offers you something if you do something in return is actually a charity. That's more of a bribe.
Well,
You can't
yeah,
have
I
a
always
charity
say it should
if
be
you
unconditional.
demand that someone accepts something in order to receive the charity.
I've not got a problem with a religious charity or any charity that offers some reading material that may or may not have a religious nature, as long as they make sure that any reading material that they have, that they are providing, is either interesting or will provide details other types of support available. But it's solely when they kind of say, come and pray to our church and we'll give you food.
I will just say, because it's almost time to wrap up the show, but if you support the work that the Atheists Helping the Homeless do, but you've either already donated or you can't afford to donate, then please either invite your friends along to watch the show if they can donate. There's still 4 hours of it left, or otherwise try and plug Atheists Helping the Homeless to friends and family after the show is finished, because they're still worthwhile.
And if you can't donate now, and in a few months' time your situation does change and you do have a few extra pennies in your pocket, make a donation then. It's the sort of thing that money is needed at any time of the year. So even if you can't donate now, but you think it's a good cause, when you do have the spare pennies, that would be a good time.
We are now up to $1,178.64. So
they might be getting close to telling us what to do, but they've still got about $500 to go to beat us.
I think it's just
so
about time to wrap up.
It might still be us making them.
Yeah, I think it's just about time to wrap up. Does anybody want to say anything before we go? Something meaningful, preferably?
Well, I had a couple of stories lined up, but well, never mind.
No, go for it. I won't say a word.
Tell us one.
Well, there's another story of this Derek Ogilvie, because on the show here in Holland, he was once talking to this lady, and he was saying, a child is speaking to me. I think a child is speaking to me, and the woman said, "Well, I don't have any children." "Oh, well, that's because it was a miscarriage that you had." She said, "Well, I never had a miscarriage." Then he said, No, it's a miscarriage you never knew you had. It's they're, I don't know, they're bending over backwards.
The punchline there would have been great if the woman had turned around and said, "Actually, I'm a nun. I've never had sex."
Yeah, that would have really buggered them up.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to think if it's medically possible for someone to have a miscarriage and not realise it. I guess if they'd had a successful conception and it had just floated down and started to attach, and then just dropped off, as it were, before the woman even noticed she'd missed a period.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Okay, I think it's about time.
that's not what I would quite call a miscarriage, but so.
I think this is about time to end the show. I believe the tech guy is just about ready with the next section of the show. So thank you all for listening. We have been Skeptic TV. I'm Sound of Silence. Joining me this week we have had Angry Womble. Say goodbye. Dutch Liam 84.
Sexy and I know it.
Blue Juggernaut.
Clap your hands.
Thanks very much. Have a good night.
And our special guest for the evening, DPR Jones. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. And in the 2 or 3 minutes that it will take to get up the next people to entertain you, why not take that time to go and click on that donation button, see what you can give us. Thank you very much indeed.
Absolutely. Thank you to Zulu for hosting us, and keep donating, everyone.